All right, guys, we'll get started here. So basically, today, what we're going to be covering, if you saw my stories, is remote closing. So, the last few weeks, the last month, we've been covering, appointment setting. And this is sort of the next step up, the next step up from appointment setting. So, if you see here, this photo that I've got here is right before I quit my job, and this payment here is actually one of the first deals that I closed, which helped me hit my first 15K month and then leave my job. So, yeah, basically going to be running you through sort of the ins and outs, more of a beginner friendly masterclass today. And then next week, we'll sort of get into more the skill set side of things, how to actually close deals, how to find these offers and things like that. But today, I just want to focus on showing you guys the opportunity that's ahead of us because, you see so much different stuff on the internet, on social media. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be covering today. And yeah, really excited to sort of get stuck into it with all you guys because it was only this time last year. Me and myself, I was just getting started with all this shit too. So yeah, we'll get stuck into it now. So we'll leave like questions and that to the end. But yeah, we'll get stuck in and we'll go from there. So as I said, over the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing pretty heavily on appointment setting, what it is, then how to find your first roles, the opportunity that's ahead of us with learning skills like sales, appointment setting, closing. So this is basically the next step up. So, if you were here on the last few sessions or if you weren't, I'll sort of get into sort of the structure of it all, how it sort of goes from, setting up the appointment to then, now where we're focusing on closing, where you're the one closing the deal like compared to setting up the appointment. This is basically on the other side of that appointment that you set is the sales team and the closers. So basically, yeah, what remote closing is there's lots of big businesses, influencers, people on social media, people in the real world as well who are selling these high ticket products, offers, whatever it may be. And because we're working in the high ticket space here, whether it is selling these digital products, basically on the other side of that deal is a sales rep, someone who needs to sell this offer because it can't be sold over the internet, can't be sold on things like Shopify or Etsy or just like Amazon or something like that because um it's so high priced. So, to increase the conversion for these businesses to make more money, they need sales reps there to convert the sale because it's such a large sum of money. You're not just paying for something that's $40. Usually this is, as low as $1,000, $2,000, all the way up to 50 or $100,000. So basically, your role as a closer is to be the guy taking that call and closing that deal. Think real like if you're like a real estate guy, you got to get people to buy houses. Same sort of thing here, but just more with digital products and things like that. So I'll get more into what it entails a bit later. But what I want you guys, like something I push heavily and something I want you guys to understand is, yes, remote closing is one thing, being able to close high ticket offers is one thing, but don't just look at it as remote closing itself or closing itself, but more so the skill of sales that you're going to learn with learning remote closing or just learning setting or just learning sales in general. It is the skill of sales. So, um, say you take the time 3 to 6 months to learn something like closing, you're going to have that sales skill set with you for a lifetime, which I believe is one of the most valuable skills. And, as we've covered in other sessions, you are paid based off the value you can provide to valuable people. So that's sort of the exciting thing with all of this is, it's not just something, say you're a remote closer for 1 to 2 years and, something else pops up or, you want to go down a different path. You've still got that skill there. Like it is going to feed you for a lifetime and make you a shitload of money for a lifetime, which is really exciting. And, everyone says their way is the best way, but like learning a high income skill, there's not much that can really, really beat it, which is the best thing because you're learning a skill and then you can implement that into anything, whether you want to start up a construction business. Say, I got sick of doing what I'm doing now and I wanted to go back to construction. I could run my own construction business confidently because I know how to sell. I know how to, get clients over the line. I know how to do, all those little intricate things that any business runs off because sales is the backbone of it all. And with that as well, marketing, which we'll get into in, a few masterclasses time. But when I talk about even my short form content, the importance of learning high income skills, this is sort of what I mean because it's not just like you learn how to be a setter, you learn how to be a closer, or you build your own personal brand. You're learning a skill that is going to feed you for a lifetime, and that's pretty much recession proof. Like for centuries and centuries, the most successful people know how to sell not only their products or whatever they've got on offer, but know how to sell themselves to other businesses know how to sell themselves to pretty much everything, anything. Even if it's like, you're selling yourself, you're trying to find a girl or something, you still got to sell yourself. So it's a skill that you don't realize you need, or something you don't realize you use in everyday life, but it is a skill that will serve you. And that's sort of what I got in bold here is like when you're learning a skill like this, or you're jumping into something different, whether it's like online, a lot of people haven't got the greatest, or it confuses them, or it makes them uncomfortable thinking about trying something new online. When you just strip it back with, learning something like remote closing, you're learning the skill of sales and how to sell. And that is a very valuable skill, and something that businesses will value very highly, meaning that you will make a lot of money, which is basically goes back to the saying of you are paid based off the skill set that you can provide, which, is really good. So that's basically like the main thing I want you guys to focus on. Like a lot of people get overwhelmed with learning a new skill and things like that. But when you just strip it back, you're learning a skill of sales. Like you're learning how to be a chippy through your apprenticeship. You're learning a skill of sales. It's not all these difficult words that you have to overwhelm yourself with, like, oh my God, making money from my phone, making money online. You're just learning how to sell. And obviously you can do that online, or you can do it in the real world too. Now, I just want to show a few wins before we jump in from guys who have no prior sales experience. So when you think of like a sales guy or saleswoman, or just a salesperson in general, you think, they've got to have, years and years of sales experience to be successful. And almost like with where everything's going at the minute, it's almost better to jump in as a complete beginner. Me, myself, when I was first getting started, I was a complete beginner. I didn't have the slightest clue of sales, of marketing, of anything. And it's almost better because, when a lot of people think of like a salesman, they think like sleazy, just trying to make money, trying to make a quick sale, pushy. And especially with the space we're working in, where especially like the big three niches, like the most successful high ticket digital products that you will sell will be in the fitness niche, the finance and like business niche, or the relationship niche. When you think of those three niches, there's always a great deal of pain behind those sort of products that you're selling, if that makes sense. So, whether it's, you're going through a divorce and you want marriage counseling, which could be like a digital product, marriage counseling, through Zoom calls and stuff, that's a digital product. If it's, you're not in shape, you're overweight, and you want to lose weight, and you've got an online fitness coach, there's a lot of pain behind not being in your ideal physique. Or even, with money in business, and like if you're broke, or you're not in a position where you can provide for people you love, things like that, there's pain behind it. So it's not like you can't just like be pushy and arrogant and things like that. You've got to actually genuinely connect with this person. And these are just a few wins from people who have started out just like you guys. This time last year, like T was October 24. He landed his first sales role. Obviously, got himself to a point where, he invested into training, invested into mentors, the same mentors that I had, but, invested into learning a skill that is going to feed him for a lifetime. He locked in, learned the skill of sales for a good 2 to 3 months. He was actually a chippy like myself for 9 years. And even if you see here, like, it still blows my mind that I talk for a living, something that I was a bit insecure about before coming into this space. Now I'm getting weekly mining checks hit the bank, but none of this would have been possible without first going through the process of, taking the risk to invest into himself, and almost like sacrificing time for 2 or 3 months where he wasn't making money. But now, in his fourth week as a closer, he's just made $10,000. So that's just the power of, well, it just goes to show what's possible. Like 2 or 3 months of sacrifice, no money. Maybe you don't go out on the weekends. Maybe, rather than watching Netflix, you're, learning a new skill. But, fast forward another 2, 3, 4 months, you have the opportunity to land a role like this and make $10,000 in a month. When, T said himself, like he's always been like an anxious person, bit insecure about the way he speaks, things like that, and now he's doing that full time as a living. Next one is from my boy Alex, who's only 17 years old. So this, goes back to no prior sales experience. If you guys don't have experience, or, it overwhelms you, or you're a bit anxious that you won't be able to pick it up, from what I've seen, the guys who come in with no sales experience don't have an ego, which is like a big thing, and learn it from like scratch, learn the new way of sales, learn how to connect, learn how to genuinely want to help someone out. So this is Alex, 17 years old, made $2,500, $2,500 in a week, which is around 4,000 Australian dollars in a week. 17 years old, and sort of knowing, like having conversated with Alex quite a bit over the last few months. He was going down a pretty bad path himself. So these are just two examples of guys who have come in with absolutely no experience, no sales experience behind them, and are now making $10,000 in a month or $4,000 in a week. So yeah, it just goes to show um, what's out there, what is possible when you take the time to learn a skill like this. And yeah, if it's nerve-wracking or you're anxious or you don't, you're struggling with self-belief, all these guys were there. I was there myself. But that's all part of, I guess, getting uncomfortable and taking a leap into the unknown. Because I say it a lot in my content, but it's something I truly believe is that on the other side of that discomfort, the unknown, you're not sure what's going to happen, is the growth that you guys are after. If these guys let the fear of failure or the self-belief get to them and didn't even start, which I see 99% of people do, they don't even start, they wouldn't have seen what's on the other side of that uncomfortability. So I do want to cover something over the next few slides that a lot of people don't even realize, and a lot of people aren't aware to. Obviously, when you see all over social media, like drop shipping, e-commerce, all these different things, making money online, people selling courses, like people selling courses who aren't even making that much money themselves, like they're just making money from doing the same shit, and there's no actual value there. A lot of people get scared off, but with learning a skill like remote closing or appointment setting or just sales in general, like I was saying before, like these jobs are on seek. These jobs are here for the taking. And I want to show you guys like how much the economy is shifting, especially since COVID. And even when I was getting started this time last year, I was so oblivious to all these stats that are behind it. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion on, I guess, the way times are changing and things like that. But the stats back it here, like these are stats from the World Economic Forum. So I want to quickly cover these stats with you, what they sort of mean, and really the opportunity you could be missing out on. Like I've got here, you will get left behind, and that will happen. So the World Economic Forum predicts that technology will increase the supply of remote jobs by 26%, reaching 92 million by the end of the decade. So what that basically means is 92 million jobs will be going remote, which is 26% more than at the start of 2020 before COVID. One of the most significant transformations we will see is the automation of many tasks that we currently perform manually. According to the World Economic Forum, more than 50% of current tasks are expected to be automated by 2030. This does not mean that millions of jobs will disappear, but rather the roles will change. Routine and repetitive tasks will be managed by machines, while jobs that require creativity, empathy, and critical thinking will become even more valuable. So, what does that mean for you? What does that mean in regards to learning sales? Basically, you know, over the next 5 years, so by the year 2030, there's going to be a lot more jobs going remote. Obviously, we know with what I'm covering today, remote closing, it's in the name. This will be one of those jobs that will really take over. And you say, all these like robotic jobs, I guess you could say, that are just managed by machines, like a lot of jobs out there will be taken over. So the people who don't take the time to learn a skill like this will get left behind, and the people who take the time now to learn a skill that requires creativity, being creative, thinking on the spot, empathy, empathizing with a person, understanding where they're coming from, and critical thinking, probably the most crucial thing with something like remote closing, will become even more valuable. Now, like I said before, you are paid based off the value you can provide. If you're not that valuable of a person, that probably reflects your income. When I was making $1,000 a week as a fourth year carpentry apprentice, I wasn't that valuable to the business. There's hundreds, if not millions of apprentices out there in Australia right now. So I could just be replaced like that. Whereas over the next 5 years, as I said here, like as I say here, the economy is shifting. The more valuable of a skill set you can provide, the more um, of a like difficult or yeah, but pretty much just the more of a valuable skill set that you can learn and acquire, even more so over the next 5 years, rather than getting left behind, you're going to become even more valuable, meaning that you can make even more money. Because remember, the more value that you can provide, the more money you make. So that's the stats. That's the stats behind it. I've got a few more here, and you might be wondering like why there is such a surge in remote work. And that was pretty much from COVID. It was sort of a temporary response. Obviously, we all remember being in COVID. Everyone was locked down, especially in Victoria. Victoria, I think it was like the most lockdown state in the whole of COVID, which was crazy. But this sort of led to more of a long term shift in how we approach employment, with numerous benefits, and obviously the biggest one being remote flexibility. companies can hire people. So, if you think of a business influencer, someone like Adam Sullivan or one of these big fitness influencers, for example, rather than having to come into work every day, especially with the work they do, it is remote. They can just hire the best people, the people with the best sales skills from anywhere in the world, which optimizes their business, also optimizes the costs, and increases diversity within their teams. Now, for all you guys are here, the biggest thing for pretty much everyone why they want to work remotely is improved work-life balance. More than 70% of employees prefer to work from home at least some days of the week if you can. But for you guys right now who are working a job that requires you to be in a certain location at a certain time, and the only way you can make money is based off working 40 or 50 hours a week, you know, over the next 5 years, if stuff starts to get replaced and you don't develop a skill set, you don't, take a risk that to invest into something like this, to invest into learning a skill that's going to feed you, especially with the economy shifting like this, right now, would you have the skills to be of value to someone valuable to work remotely for them? Like if someone was in need of someone, a sales rep to sell their high ticket offer or whatever it may be, just think to yourself, am I a valuable person right now? And if you're not, that's fine. But you've got to realize, like a lot of people, even speaking to a lot of you guys, even myself this time last year, I thought I had all this time in the world, all the time. I'll start tomorrow, I'll start next month, I'll start whenever. But realistically, like the stats go to show that, we're running out of time. People are going to be replaced by robots, by AI, which is fucked, but it's just the truth. So yeah, these are the stats that back it. This is where the space is going. And if you don't have a valuable skill set behind you, something that's not really replaceable, like the skill of sales, like human to human connection, it's going to be obviously the future is unknown, but it's going to be interesting to see where things go. And as I said, like I wasn't even aware of all this stuff when I was first getting started, and I know 99% of people aren't. They're just in their little box, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting 5 years ahead. Now, with that, where do we sort of come in with remote jobs? Obviously, a lot of the stuff, or all the stuff you do online with remote closing, appointment setting, whatever it may be, is remote. But what does that sort of mean for us? So I've got here, with the e-learning market, so basically learning stuff online, whatever it may be, whether it's, learning real estate, how to flip houses, Airbnb, whether it's, getting trained up fitness wise online, whatever it may be, basically learning stuff online. By the year 2030, that will be an $840 billion industry. In 2020, before COVID, that was a $190 billion industry. So that's going to be an increase of 17%. So basically, what that means is there is a demand there for people. There's a demand for online learning. But where's the supply going to come from? A lot of this 840 billion will be consumed by high ticket products, which we know, we covered earlier. These high ticket products um, need to be sold over the internet, sold by a sales rep. It's not just, on Amazon, like we said before. So like anything in the world, there's supply, there's demand. The demand is there. People want to learn online. People want to learn skills so they can work remotely. People want to get fit but not have to go into the gym because they're insecure of maybe seeing their ex. Everything is going online. It's just where things are going. Now, with that, most of that 840 billion will be in the high ticket space because it's of a high price. So that's where you come in. Once again, becoming valuable, learning a skill like sales, and you're just simply supplying with your skill of sales to the demand that's there. So the demand's there. If you can learn sales, you're just the supply to the demand. So I hope that sort of makes sense because the stats are there to back it. And a lot of people are hesitant to get started with something like this, but the stats are there to back it. This is where the economy is shifting, where the economy is going, and it's not just be fearful that you're going to lose your job and you're going to get replaced, but you're missing a massive advantage not a lot of people before us have had to make a lot of fucking money without having to run a business, without having to worry about any of that stuff. You can just supply a valuable skill to a valuable person and be the supply to the demand. Now, a lot of people, even seeing like in my comments, a lot of people are so in this box of, you got soft hands if you don't want to work a trade. The news is saying different stuff. Like I saw a news article the other day that was saying that congratulating that Australia is raising the national minimum wage by 3.5%. 3.5%, that sounds like a good number. That's 84 cents an hour. in an economy that has gone up by 23% over the last 5 years. Complete bullshit. So basically, you're 20% worse off because it's raised by 3%, but it's gone up 23. So you're 20% worse off than we were 5 years ago. Now, obviously, with that, it sort of all works in conjunction here. Yep, we've got a minimum wage increase of 84 cents an hour, but the cost of living's gone up 23%. All right, how can I get ahead of the cost of living? Because a lot of you guys struggle with the cost of living. I struggled with the cost of living. Working by the hour is not going to get you there. And as much as the government, I'm not some conspiracy theorist, but it's so fucked to see this stuff being on the other side of it now. And how, most people are just blind to it all. So, how can we get on the other side of cost of living? Well, as we saw the stats over here before, remote work is increasing by 26%, meaning and the growth of e-learning is growing by 17.5%. So if you sort of look at all these numbers here, if you can land a remote work job where you're providing value to a valuable person, making if he's making a lot of money, then you're going to make a lot of money. You're just being the supply to the demand. So that's sort of the stats behind it. Now, I don't want to overwhelm you with information or say, your life's going to be fucked if you don't learn all these skills, but I just want you to be aware of like where stuff's going because a lot of people are so oblivious to this and don't realize where the economy is shifting. And even myself, like up until 6 months ago, I was the same. And I'm like, holy fuck, like I've almost got lucky getting to the position I'm in now because stuff is going to change. Now, remote closing, the job. That's sort of the what I wanted you guys to realize, but now I want to sort of run you through remote closing, what the job entails, how you can, be of value to these people who are valuable people, right? So obviously, when you think of, say say Andrew Tate. I'm sure everyone knows Andrew Tate. He has Hustlers University. I think it's like $50 a month, but then there's also like a high ticket product that might be say $5,000. So if you think of like how well known Andrew Tate is, how many people would try and message him personally? Obviously, he isn't the one responding to everyone, or he can't take a million sales calls a day. So that's why he needs a team behind him. You've probably heard it on the internet, that you'll go further with a team behind you. If you try to be a one man army, you're not going to get that far. So basically, how I guess a funnel works. It's a bit of a big word that I definitely didn't know, but basically how the funnel works for these high ticket offers is people will reach out to people like people interested in say making money from whatever Andrew teaches will be interested. So they'll reach out to him. How do I do it? I want to learn from you. That's where the appointment setter comes in, sort of qualifies the prospect. If you've not read through, if you don't know what appointment setting is, I've got like 4 other masterclasses from the last month on all this. That's basically where the appointment setter will do his job, which is qualifying or unqualifying the person reaching out. Are they serious enough? Have they got a job? Because remember, this is a high ticket offer. Now, from there, their job is, if they qualify, is to book someone on the call, and that's the setter's job. So they've booked a qualified lead on the call. Now, this is where the remote closer comes in. They will take the call following a framework, and we're going to get into the skills and the frameworks over the next few weeks. But basically, with remote closing, with sales, you follow a framework. You don't follow a script. So following your line of questions, following certain things you need to get out of these people to try and help them, you use skills to pull on things like pain, the cost of not taking action, and also building urgency. These are probably the 3 main things you need to focus on in sales are pain, pulling on that pain. What's it going to be like if you don't take action? What's it been like? What have you actually costed yourself by not taking action? And then building urgency on them to make a change now. These are all skills that, can take 2 to 3 months to learn, but once you master them, once again, it's like anything. You can implement this into anything. If these people aren't urgent to take you on now, aren't urgent to, if you're selling yourself to a business, if these businesses aren't urgent to take you on right now, what has it costed them to not have a good sales rep? Like it works in everything. Now, from there, you take the call. They're usually from 20 to 40 minutes long, following a framework, pulling on all these things with your sales skills. Then from there, you close the deal. So you help someone make a positive change, and as a byproduct of that, you make money remotely. So that's what the last thing is. I was like, with this, like a lot of people, like I was saying before, they just think sales is just this sleazy salesman job where you're just making people go broke especially with the industry that we're trying to work in, the high ticket space, health, wealth, relationships. you're not trying to take money from someone. You're trying to make them help, you're trying to help them make a positive change in their life in whatever niche that may be. Now, as a byproduct of genuinely caring for someone and genuinely trying to help them realize that if they keep going down the same path, they're going to end up in a position they don't want to be in continuously. They're going to make a positive change. They're going to get positive results. And as a byproduct of that, you make money and you get to do it remotely. So that's sort of the job itself. Now, obviously, we can do questions towards the end, or you can. This will be recorded and put onto YouTube, so you can ask questions down below. You can message me personally on Instagram or in the group chat. But that's basically a brief rundown of remote closing, the job, how people end up getting booked on calls. Obviously reaching out to the influencer, the appointment setter. Then from there, it's really about learning that skill so you can close the deal. And obviously, the more deals that you close, the more valuable you are to these valuable people who are helping people change their lives. So with the commission structure, like how you actually make money, like you say, it's a $20,000 deal, which might sound ridiculous, but that's the space we're working in. And when you think of that $840 billion, and when I say the high ticket space will take up a lot of that, this is sort of what I mean. So when you think of a $20,000 deal, and say that deal closes, the appointment setter will get 5% of that. Um, sorry, the appointment setter will get 5% of that $20,000, which is $1,000 for booking a call. And the closer, you will get 10%. Now, the other 20% can go to marketers, can go back to the business, can go into a bunch of different things. But as a closer, you're earning 10% of that $20,000 deal. So it could be $2,000 for a 30-minute phone call. Or say you don't close the deal, you don't have the skills, $0 for 0 hours, so you're not getting paid by your time. And that's like sort of the luxury, the scary thing and the good thing about working commission based, because if you don't learn the skill properly, you're not going to make money. So that's sort of a brief commission structure. Say it's a $20,000 deal, you get 10%, $2,000, 10,000 deal, you get 10%, $1,000, $5,000 deal, 10%, $500. So you can see like, some hours you could make $0 an hour, but some hours you can make $500 in an hour, $2,000 in an hour. Some days you could make $5,000 in a day, then the next day you make nothing. So that's also another thing is like working by the hour, you're getting the same pay for the same wage, you're working the same hours for the same boss, and you're just doing burnouts, you're just going in circles. With this, if you take the time to learn a skill properly, that there's no ceiling really. There's no ceiling. Now, with that, like, you might think, oh, you might still be working 8 hours a day, taking 8 calls a day. How do I make more money? Do I just have to take more calls? Say I get to $10,000 a month, quit my job, got all this free time, but I want to take more calls, I want to make money. A lot of people get caught up with doing extra work that they don't need to do. So that's where the skill set once again comes in crucial and where the top guys make money. When you think of like the top guys working in sales, say like as a remote closer, you think, all right, so the guy's making 30K a month, they're taking 15 calls a day, not sleeping, working 15 hours a day. These guys are just have improved their closing rate and their skill. So, what a typical daily structure could look like, taking calls as a remote closer, you obviously get to pick your own hours. Say you're working 5 hours a day, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's probably, that's similar to what I would have been working when I was taking calls myself. 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., sort of get to sleep in, maybe go to the gym, and then you finish early hour. Taking 5 calls. Now, the industry average closing rate, so across the whole industry, is 20%. So, out of 5 calls you take, on the average, you'll close one of those calls. So, say it's a $10,000 deal, it's $1,000 for the day. Still pretty good, right? But, how do you make more money? So how do you grow? How do you scale? How do you actually make more money by not taking more calls, by not working more hours? Because obviously, the reason all you guys want to get into this is to have freedom to work on your own terms. Say you're taking calls from Bali, say you're taking calls from somewhere in Europe, you want to experience the country still. And the way that you don't actually have to work more hours is once again, you're paid by the skills that you have, not by the hours you work. So, say you take the time 2 or 3 months. This is what I'd recommend as well. This is what I did. This is what everyone who I see successful does. You take the time to learn a skill properly for 3 months, make absolutely no money from it, but you get good as fuck at the skill. You can take the same 5 calls as the average guy who rushed through it, was just trying to get rich quick, but you can close 3, 4, 5 of those calls in the same 5 hours and make 3, 4, 5 times more than anyone else. That's what I mean when you are paid by the skills that you have, not by the hours you work. Now, that same guy could say you take 3 calls in a day, you close 2 of those calls, 3 hours of work a day. The same guy who's closing at 20% would have to take 10 calls to close the same 2 deals. So take the time to learn the skill properly, and in the long run, and that's like the vision I want to paint for you guys, like long run, long run. You don't even like. If I were you, I wouldn't want to make money in the next month. I'd want to make money. I'd want to learn a skill properly over the next 3 months, and then make a lot more money in the long run. Because that's all. That's the biggest thing my mentor, I guess, has instilled in me is like long run. Don't. A lot of people, like everyone, 99% of people are just so reliant on instant gratification, whereas delayed gratification is where the real growth and long-term success will come from. Now, once again, just showing some results, some proof of concept of what taking the time to learn the skills can do for you, and why it's important. So you see Colton here. This is Cole. He's from I believe he's from America. But he was actually a closer himself for a year and a half, sort of trying to go about it the quick way, trying to make the quickest amount of money possible. Um, and he thought, closing rates and consistent commissions were 100% closing rates, and consistent commissions were out of reach, at least starting out. But it took him a year and a half to start my first somewhat promising high ticket sales role. Long story short, he only made $400 from that role, trying to go about it quick, trying to teach himself, not learning from the right people, and started to get a heap more self doubt than even when he first started. He then joined ABC, which is the academy I'm a part of, the same mentors that I had, and within his first 3 days on the job, after landing another role, he closed at 100%. 6 out of 6 calls he took over 3 days, and had more cash collected than the $400 that took me a month and a half. Once again, just going back on what I'm saying, you heard what I said before. He's now taking the time to learn the skill properly, rather than having to take calls for a month and a half. He's earned more money in 3 days taking 2 calls a day. Now, next is my boy Ryan. 100% closing rate, once again, closing every single call he took, and was only inside the academy for 7 weeks. So obviously the first month is really just focusing on not even making money, just becoming the best version of yourself, skill set wise, but also mindset wise. And he's only 18, 19 years old. I did a bit of traveling with Ryan last year. But once again, just the biggest thing I want to show you guys in this first session for remote closing is the opportunity that's there and what you could potentially be missing out on, where the economy is shifting, but also the importance of not trying to make money quickly. Because that's where, say you make money quickly, it'll leave you as quick as it comes. If you focus on learning a skill that has been the most valuable skill for decades and decades and decades, you're going to be set for a lifetime. So that's pretty much wrapping it up there. Do we have any questions or anything like that before we wrap up? Any feedback, anything like that? I think the chat is open. If you want to put something in the chat or raise your hand or anything like that. Now, obviously, this is just more of a introduction to what the next few sessions will look like. Over the next few sessions, I want to show you guys where to obviously find these roles, how to apply for them through Seek and things like that. But yeah, let me know if there's any questions. Yep, Jamie, I'll unmute you, bro.
Cooper, mate, good to see
How you doing, bro?
you. No, I'm good, bro. Look, I just wanted to ask a general question. I'm just getting into closing myself.
Yep.
Maybe just people from, you've seen what's maybe some of the challenges, that they face day to day. They're taking a lot of calls and shit. So,
Yep.
yeah.
I think probably the biggest, like even speaking to a lot of closers is like getting like the skill itself is pretty good, but once you start getting in your own head, that can be like a difficult thing. So if people like aren't fully confident with their skills, and then they take like 3 calls in a row in the morning, and then those 3 calls don't close, then they'll go that the self doubt will start to creep in. So biggest piece of advice that the our mentors give our sales team is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're not training in the gym consistently, if you're not in your best shape physically or mentally or things like that, that will bleed into what you're doing work wise. And then from there, when you say you take 2 calls, you don't close either of them, then the next 3 calls that you take for the day, it bleeds into that as well. So yeah, I think just building a strong mindset. Obviously, the skill will help, and having belief in the skill that you've learned. But building a strong mindset so that even outside of closing and things like that, that every single call you're going in fresh, and with a sort of a new approach. And also, people, I think another thing as well, bro, would be I need to make money. I need to make $1,000 from this call. Whereas, like I said earlier, is like if you strip it back, it's like I'm just trying to help this person make a positive change. Say it doesn't make sense for them. Say they're not that urgent to make a change, or say that they're not financially there to make a change, then and it doesn't make sense, you're still trying to push this person in the right direction, regardless of if you make money or not. And off the back of that, it's just sort of the way the world works. The more people you try and help out genuinely, the more money you make as a byproduct of that. So every single call going into it, this is a new call, but also, I'm just trying to help this person make a genuine change in their life. And another thing that helps with that as well is, which we'll cover in sort of the next few weeks, would be finding an offer that genuinely gets people results. So obviously there's a lot of offers out there, but something that actually gets people results, because then, you're saying that with conviction. You know that this will actually help this person make a change. Whereas if you're on an offer that doesn't actually get the people results, and you're pretty much making false promises, then you're not going to sell it with the same conviction, because you're not genuinely helping someone, meaning, as a byproduct, you're not going to make the money. Does that make sense? I have to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, definitely. Everything I was going to add to that, you've pretty much covered. So
Yeah.
yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Easy, easy. Any other questions, Karen? I'm not sure if people dropped off or there just wasn't really anyone here. Maybe I'll have to change fucking day and time we do it. But any more questions? If not, we'll wrap up there. But yeah, even for the people on YouTube watching this back who couldn't make it, um, if that didn't make sense or you got any questions, don't feel afraid to sort of reach out to me personally on Instagram or anything like that. Um, but yeah, appreciate it. Next week, over the next few weeks, we'll cover more the actual skill itself, how to find these roles, and things like that. But yeah, today I just sort of wanted to show the opportunity that's there, show the stats behind it, show what a lot of people don't are oblivious to, what I was oblivious to. And then, a brief, obviously, what is remote closing. But yeah, we'll wrap up there, guys. Appreciate the time. Yeah, cheers.